In 1901, Booker T. Washington published the story of his own life, a journey from a one-room slave cabin in Virginia to the platform of Harvard University and the parlors of kings. Up from slavery is the testimony of a man who rose, as he put it, from the lowest depths of slavery, ignorance, and poverty, and who built a school that would outlast him. This is his journey, told in his own words.
Washington's gospel was simple and stubborn. A race, like an individual, must lay its foundation at the bottom of life, not the top. In the first years of freedom, he argued, real estate, industrial skill, and property mattered more than a seat in Congress or a knowledge of Greek and Latin. He believed there is as much dignity in tilling a field as in writing a poem, and that merit, no matter under what skin it is found, is in the long run recognized and rewarded. From this conviction grew Tuskegee, and a philosophy that would both inspire his people and divide them. First, the cabin where it began, a childhood in slavery among the hills of Virginia, and the momentous morning when the war set him free. Booker Taliaferro was born a slave around 1858 on a small plantation in Franklin County, Virginia, near a crossroads called Hale's Ford. He never knew the day or month of his birth, nor his father, reputed to be a white man from a nearby farm who took no interest in him. He lived with his mother, the plantation cook, and his brother John and sister Amanda in a windowless log cabin with a bare dirt floor, sleeping on a bundle of rags. There were no games and no schooling. From his earliest memory, every day was given to labor, carrying water, cleaning yards, hauling corn to the distant mill. The most tempting paradise he could imagine was the schoolhouse door, where he once carried his young mistress's books and glimpsed children at study. Though the slaves on the remote plantation owned no books or newspapers, they followed the great national questions with uncanny accuracy. News of every battle traveled by what they called the grapevine telegraph. The man sent for the mail would linger at the post office, catch the drift of the white people's talk, and carry it home, so that the slaves often knew the results of great battles before the masters at the big house did. From the time Garrison and Lovejoy began to agitate for freedom, they kept close watch on the movement. Young Booker's first knowledge that freedom itself was being discussed came one morning before dawn, when he awoke to find his mother kneeling over her children, praying fervently that Lincoln and his armies might be successful. When the war closed, freedom came to the plantation on a momentous morning. All the slaves were called to the big house, where a stranger, a United States officer, Washington believed, read aloud a long paper, the Emancipation Proclamation, and told them they were free to go where they pleased. His mother leaned down and kissed her children, as tears of joy ran down her cheeks. This was the day for which she had so long prayed, fearing she would never live to see it. Yet within a few hours, the wild rejoicing gave way to a deep gloom. The great responsibility of freedom, of finding a home, a living, an education, and the care of children, settled suddenly upon a people, some of them 70 years old, with their best days behind them. Freed, the family walked several hundred miles over the mountains to Malden, West Virginia, in the Kanawha Valley, where Booker's stepfather had found work at a salt furnace. The new cabin, crowded among others with no sanitation, was in some ways worse than the old. As a small child, he was set to packing salt, often beginning at 4 in the morning, and later sent into the dreaded darkness of a coal mine. Yet his first lesson in book knowledge came at the furnace, where he learned to recognize the number 18 chalked on his stepfather's salt barrels. Burning to read, he induced his mother to find an old copy of Webster's Blueback Speller and set himself to master the alphabet alone, with no teacher anywhere near who could guide him.
An education was the one resolve that never left him. It would carry a penniless boy across Virginia, under a city sidewalk, and into the presence of the man who would shape his life.
After freedom, a whole race tried to go to school at once. Few were too young, and none too old to make the attempt. Men and women of 50 and 70 crowded the night schools, the great ambition of the old being to read the Bible before they died. In Malden, families pooled their money to hire a teacher who would board around, spending a day with each household in turn. When his stepfather refused to spare him from the furnace, Booker arranged night lessons, then begged his way into day school by working from before dawn until 9. He even slipped into the office and moved the furnace clock forward to reach class on time, until the boss locked it in a case. It was here, on the school roll, that he first claimed the surname Washington. One day, deep in the blackness of the coal mine, Booker overheard two miners speaking of a great school in Virginia for colored people, a place where poor but worthy students could work out the cost of their board while learning a trade. Creeping close in the dark to listen, he felt that not even heaven held more attraction than this Hampton Normal and Agricultural Institute. From that moment, he was on fire with a single ambition: to reach Hampton, though he had no idea where it was, how far away, or how he would ever pay. The thought was with him day and night. He worked on in the mine a while longer, then took a place in the household of General Lewis Ruffner, the mine's owner, and his strict Yankee wife, Viola. Mrs. Viola Ruffner, a Yankee woman from Vermont, had a fearsome reputation. Few servants lasted more than 2 or 3 weeks under her strictness. But Booker came to understand her. She wanted everything kept absolutely clean, done promptly and systematically, with total honesty beneath it all. Nothing must be slovenly, no door off its hinge, no fence left in disrepair. From fearing her, he learned to count her among his best friends, and the lessons he learned in her home he ranked as valuable as any education he ever received anywhere. Even years later, he wrote, he could not pass a scrap of paper on the street or a filthy yard without wanting to set it right. It was in her house, too, that he assembled his first small library inside a dry goods box. In the fall of 1872, he set out for Hampton, 500 miles away, with a cheap satchel and almost no money. The journey taught him the meaning of his skin. At a mountain inn, the clerk refused him food or a bed without a word about payment. Walking and begging rides in wagons and cars, he reached Richmond penniless and exhausted, and crept beneath an elevated board sidewalk to sleep, his satchel for a pillow, the tramp of feet sounding over his head all night. In the morning, he earned his breakfast unloading pig iron from a ship, then worked at the docks for days until he had saved enough to go on. He arrived at Hampton at last with a surplus of exactly 50 cents with which to begin his education. At Hampton, the head teacher, Miss Mary Mackey, doubtful of the ragged traveler before her, told him to sweep the recitation room. Here he knew was his chance. He swept it 3 times and dusted it 4, moving every bench and cleaning every closet and corner. The lessons of Mrs. Ruffner repaid in full. When Miss Mackey rubbed her handkerchief over the woodwork and could find no dust, she said quietly, "I guess you will do to enter this institution." That sweeping, he wrote, was his college examination, and he never passed a better one. But Hampton's deepest gift was a man, General Samuel C. Armstrong, the noblest, rarest human being Washington ever met, a former Union officer who carried no bitterness and showed him that contact with a great character is itself a liberal education. Educated at last,
Washington became a teacher and watched a freed people struggle with politics, the Klan, and the hard question of what their freedom should be built upon.
To pay his way, Washington worked as Hampton's janitor, rising at 4 to build the fires and tend a great many rooms. The cost of his tuition was quietly met by a Mr. Morgan of New Bedford, while barrels of second-hand clothing sent from the North kept him decent. There he learned the lesson that would become his creed, that labor is not a disgrace, but a thing to love for its own sake, for the independence and self-reliance it brings. Watching the cultured Miss Mackey cheerfully clean windows at his side, he resolved never to support a school that did not teach the dignity of work. He finished Hampton in June of 1875, then returned to Malden to teach the very people of his hometown, often working from 8 in the morning until 10 at night. While Washington taught at Malden, the Ku Klux Klan was at the height of its activity. These were bands of men, he wrote, organized to crush the political aspirations of the Negro, successors to the slave-time patrollers, but far more cruel, operating at night, burning schoolhouses and churches, and taking innocent lives. He witnessed an open battle at Malden between black and white men, with nearly 100 on each side and many seriously hurt. Among the wounded was General Lewis Ruffner himself, who tried to defend the colored people and was so badly injured that he never completely recovered. Watching that struggle between the two races, the young teacher felt for a moment that there was no hope for his people. The Klan period, he said, was the darkest part of the Reconstruction days.
Of the Reconstruction years, 1867 to 1878, Washington wrote with a critic's eye. Two cravings, he said, gripped his people: a hunger for Greek and Latin learning and a desire to hold office. Men who could barely write their names became teachers and preachers. He saw legislators who could not read, and one former lieutenant governor reduced to carrying bricks, hailed in the street as governor. He judged the whole policy artificial and forced, built in part to lift white men into office upon the ignorance of the Negro, and feared his people would be the ones to suffer for it in the end. He nearly entered political life himself, but turned away, convinced that a foundation in education, industry, and property would serve his race far better than political preferment.
After 8 months of further study in Washington, D.C., Booker was recalled to Hampton by General Armstrong, first as a kind of housefather to over 100 American Indian students, an experiment few believed could succeed. Living among them, he won their confidence and love, and noted how readily the black students helped teach the newcomers English. It recalled to him Frederick Douglass, who, forced into a baggage car on account of his color, had answered a sympathizer that they could not degrade Frederick Douglass, for the soul within him no man could degrade. Armstrong next placed Washington in charge of a night school for the poorest students, who worked 10 hours by day and studied 2 by night. So earnest were they that he gave them a name, the Plucky Class. In 1881, a telegram changed everything. Washington went south to Alabama to start a school and found neither building nor land, only hungry, earnest souls who wanted to learn. In May 1881, gentlemen in Tuskegee, Alabama, wrote to Armstrong for a principal for a new colored normal school, expecting him to name a white man. Armstrong recommended Washington instead, and the reply soon came by telegram. Booker T. Washington will suit us. Send him at once. He arrived in June to a town of about 2,000 in the heart of the Black Belt. So named, he explained, first for its dark, rich soil, and later for the counties where black people far outnumbered white. He had expected a building and equipment ready and waiting. He found none. The state had granted $2,000 for teachers' salaries only, with nothing at all for land, buildings, or apparatus. The task before him, he said, was much like making bricks without straw. Before opening, Washington spent a month traveling the country districts by mule and cart, eating and sleeping in the people's cabins to see their real everyday life. He found whole families in a single room, living on fat pork and cornbread, though gardens could grow anywhere, planting cotton up to the very door of the cabin. In one home, 5 people shared a single fork at the table, while a $60 organ bought on installments stood unused in the corner because no one could play it. Children studied a single book 5 at a time, peeping over one another's shoulders. He saw a young man sitting in a filthy, weed-choked cabin studying a French grammar. The lesson was unmistakable. These people needed something far more than mere book learning. Tuskegee opened on the 4th of July, 1881, in a dilapidated shanty and a colored Methodist church so leaky that a student once held an umbrella over Washington while he taught. 30 students reported the first day, many of them grown public school teachers. He was the only instructor. 2 men of the town became his constant guides and the school's true foundation, and he named them as types of what cooperation could be. One was George W. Campbell, a white merchant, banker, and former slaveholder. The other was Lewis Adams, a black ex-slave and skilled mechanic who had mastered 3 trades in bondage and taught himself to read and write while still enslaved. Together, the ex-master and the ex-slave, they had written the very letter that brought Washington to Alabama.
6 weeks in, a remarkable co-teacher arrived, Olivia A. Davidson, Ohio-born and trained at Hampton and at Framingham in Massachusetts, who had once nursed a smallpox patient others abandoned and had volunteered as a yellow fever nurse. No single person, Washington wrote, did more to lay Tuskegee's foundations. Later, she became his wife. When an abandoned plantation came up for sale at $500, Hampton's treasurer, General Marshall, lent the down payment from his own personal funds. Davidson raised the rest through festivals and tireless appeals to white and black townspeople alike. Most moving of all was an old woman in clean rags who hobbled in, leaning on a cane, and gave 6 eggs, all she had, toward the education, she said, of these boys and girls.
Washington students would not merely study at Tuskegee, they would build it, fire its bricks, raise its walls, and learn that labor itself could win the respect of both races.
From the beginning, Washington insisted that students raise their own buildings, make their own furniture, and clear their own land, not for cheapness, but to teach self-reliance and the beauty and dignity of work. Many balked. They had come, as one said, to be educated, not to work, and questioned whether clearing land suited their dignity. So Washington took up his own axe each afternoon and led the way into the woods until some 20 acres had been cleared and planted. Over 19 years, his students erected about 40 buildings, nearly all by their own hands, passing skill down from one class to the next. An old student would remind a careless newcomer not to mar the wall, for he would say, "That is our building. I helped put it up." His hardest early trial was brick-making. The town had no brickyard, and the school needed bricks for its walls. But the work was filthy, and students hated standing knee-deep in the mud pit. The first kiln failed, so did the second. The third collapsed in the middle of the night. The last failure left him without a single dollar to try again. In desperation, Washington took a watch he had long owned to a pawn shop in the city of Montgomery and raised $15 upon it, just enough to rally his discouraged forces for a 4th attempt, which at last succeeded. He never redeemed the watch and never regretted the loss. White neighbors soon came to buy the good bricks. Trade began to pass between them, and the work helped bind the 2 races together. The early years were a torment of debt. Bills fell due with not a dollar in hand, and Washington lay awake, he wrote,
with anxiety pressing down on him at the rate of 1,000 pounds to the square inch. He knew the experiment was being watched. If a school run by Negroes failed, it would injure the faith of the whole race, for the presumption was always against them. He borrowed small sums from the white men of Tuskegee and held to one rule above all others, to keep the school's credit high. "Always remember," George Campbell told him in his fatherly way, "that credit is capital," and more than once General Armstrong, far away, quietly sent his own personal savings to keep Tuskegee alive through its darkest seasons. To fund the growing school, Washington spent half of every year in the North, going from door to door and office to office. He refused the word begging. Rich people, he believed, had sense enough to know how to give, and the plain presentation of facts on a high, dignified plane was all the begging most of them cared for. His two rules were to do his whole duty in making the work known and not to worry about results. Patience paid. A Connecticut man who gave nothing on a cold first visit sent $10,000 2 years later. Collis P. Huntington, the railroad magnate, gave $2 at first and $50,000 near the end of his life. Hard work, not luck, Washington insisted, brought every gift worth having. In September 1895, on a platform in Atlanta, Washington spoke for a few short minutes before a Southern audience and woke the next morning the most famous black man in America. Invited to represent his race at the Atlanta Cotton States Exposition, Washington rose before thousands of white Southerners on the 18th of September, 1895, hoping to cement friendship between the races. He told a parable. A ship lost at sea signaled a friendly vessel for water and was answered, "Cast down your bucket where you are." The dying crew at last let down their bucket and drew up fresh water from the mouth of the Amazon. To his own people, he said the same. Cast down your bucket where you are, in agriculture, mechanics, commerce, and domestic service, making friends in every manly way of the white neighbors around them. No race, he warned, can prosper till it learns that there is as much dignity in tilling a field as in writing a poem.
Then came the sentence that would define him and haunt him. Lifting his dark hand high, the fingers stretched wide apart, Washington declared that in all things purely social, the two races could be as separate as the fingers, yet one as the hand in all things essential to mutual progress. The agitation of questions of social equality, he said, was the extremest folly. The chance to earn $1 in a factory was worth infinitely more than the chance to spend one in an opera house. The hall erupted, women cheered, hats flew into the air, and Governor Bullock rushed across the platform to seize his hand. The speech was printed in full across the country, and President Grover Cleveland wrote to thank him, saying his words could not fail to encourage all who wished his race well. The war correspondent, James Creelman, wired that a Negro Moses had delivered an oration marking a new epoch in the South, and the editor Clark Howell called it the beginning of a moral revolution in America. Overnight, Washington was hailed as the foremost man of his race. But when the first enthusiasm cooled, many of his own people, reading the speech in cold type, felt he had been too liberal toward the white South and too quiet about their rights. They had been, as some said, hypnotized. He made no retraction. He had earlier weathered the same storm for an honest letter about the failings of the Negro ministry, enduring a year of condemnation in silence. In time, he believed, the sober second thought of the people would surely vindicate him. Fame made Washington one of the most sought-after speakers in America, yet he never understood why crowds came to hear him and confessed that he suffered intensely from nervousness before every important address. His secret was simple:
never speak merely for the sake of speaking, but only when convinced, from the bottom of his feet to the top of his head, that he had a message to help some individual or some cause. Audiences, he found, want facts rather than generalities or sermonizing. He scorned the artificial rules of elocution. Soul in an address, he said, mattered more than any of them. Armstrong's old counsel still guided him. Give them an idea for every word. If one doubting listener sat in the hall, Washington would find him and go straight at him until he thawed.
In the years that followed, the boy who once slept under a sidewalk would take tea with a queen, receive a degree from Harvard, and welcome a president to his school.
In 1899, after 18 years without a true rest, friends in Boston, led by Francis Garrison, forced a 3-month European holiday upon the exhausted Washington and his third wife, Margaret. Aboard the steamer Friesland, he slept some 15 hours a day for a month, feeling the load of care lift from his shoulders, it seemed at the rate of £1 a minute. In Paris, he visited the Black American painter Henry O. Tanner and dined with ex-President Harrison. In England, he met Mark Twain and the explorer Henry M. Stanley, who left him more convinced than ever that Africa offered no escape for the American Negro. The crowning surprise came at Windsor Castle, where, in company with Susan B. Anthony, he and his wife took tea as guests of Queen Victoria herself.
The greatest surprise of his life had come 3 years earlier, on a Sunday morning as he sat on his Tuskegee veranda. A letter from Harvard, signed by President Charles W. Eliot, offering him an honorary degree. As he read it, his whole former life passed before him: the slave plantation, the coal mine, the nights without food, the bed beneath a Richmond sidewalk, and tears came into his eyes. On the 24th of June, 1896, in Sanders Theater, Eliot conferred upon him the degree of Master of Arts, the first time a New England university had so honored a black man. To the alumni, he said that the great question of American life was how to bring the strong, wealthy, and learned into helpful touch with the humblest, and that Harvard was solving it, not by bringing itself down, but by bringing the masses up.
Early in his work, Washington had secretly resolved to build a school so useful that a president of the United States would one day come to see it. In December 1898, after the Spanish-American War, President William McKinley did exactly that, traveling 140 miles out of his way with Mrs. McKinley and nearly his whole cabinet. The Alabama legislature adjourned to attend, and the white townsfolk of Tuskegee decorated the streets in welcome. The whole school passed in review, each student carrying a stalk of sugarcane tipped with open bowls of cotton, while floats contrasted the old ways of farming and cooking with the new. McKinley praised the Institute as ideal in its conception, and Secretary Long, deeply moved, declared that the great problem of the race had all but been solved. 20 years from its broken-down shanty and old hen house, Tuskegee had become a kingdom of purpose. The Institute owned some 2,300 acres, 1,000 of them under cultivation by students, and 66 buildings, nearly all raised by student hands. 1,400 students came from 27 states and from Africa, Cuba, Puerto Rico, and Jamaica. 110 instructors taught 30 industrial departments alongside academic and religious training. Its property and endowment together were valued at $1,700,000. Every hour was filled, from the rising bell at 5 in the morning to the retiring bell at 9:30 at night, and the demand for graduates outran the supply. Some 6,000 of them were now scattered across the South, buying land, building homes, and quietly revolutionizing whole communities. Proof, Washington felt, that the world will in the end have the best, regardless of race, religion, or previous condition.
Washington kept lifting others as he climbed, founding the first Tuskegee Negro Conference, and in 1900, with T. Thomas Fortune, the National Negro Business League. He spoke out against the evil of lynching and never lost hope, trusting that the great human law, which in the end rewards merit, is everlasting and universal. By chance, he closed his autobiography in Richmond, Virginia, the city where 25 years before, in his poverty, he had slept night after night under a sidewalk. Now he returned as the honored guest of its colored citizens, invited to address both races in the Academy of Music, with the city council and the state legislature attending in a body. From the bottom of his heart, he wrote, he thanked both races for this welcome back to the state that gave him birth. Up From Slavery remains one of the most influential American autobiographies and one of the most debated. Washington's faith in patient self-help, property, and skilled labor built a great institution and won the ear of presidents and kings. Yet critics, then and now, have asked what was surrendered when rights were set aside for acceptance. He measured success not so much by the position a man reaches in life, as by the obstacles he has overcome while trying to succeed. From a dirt-floored cabin to the platform at Harvard, from the darkness of a coal mine to tea with a queen, his own life was the argument. Cast down your bucket where you are, he told a divided nation, and begin always at the bottom.